Namaste, lads and ladies. Welcome back finally to another tattoo story time. Today, oh, lovely. Today, if you're wondering why I'm shirtless, very hot outside, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately for me, I'm as pale as a ghost. Normally don't sunbathe an awful lot, but have been fantastically exercising out, and it's been gorgeous. I've been back at my rugby. It's been fantastic. Been out doing some cycling. I've got to get back into swimming though, because I feel like I've been neglecting my swimming an awful lot. Won't be going in the ocean anytime soon, but yeah, thalassophobia kind of like keeps me back from that. But yeah, pool's not off limits, so that's all good. Anyway, we're here today to talk about a very special tattoo of mine, and that is of my triple star tattoo. If you've realised it, it's the Pacific Triple Star. Um, this one is technically the one shown on the New Zealand flag, whereas the Australian one has the other little stars on the top. But for this design, I asked him to basically remove the two stars, because the triple star was meant to be a representation of my four cousins, basically in Australia. They used to live here. Well, only one of them was born in Australia, so technically he's the only Aussie out of all of them, basically. Byron, his name is. And there's Lizette and Dion, the two twins. Imagine that, two twins. And the eldest is Sean. Sean, absolutely love him. Honestly, he's one of the sweetest, nicest guys you could ever meet, really. As is Dion and Lizette and Byron, but Sean is particularly a very sweet spirit, bless him. And Dion, bless him, he's unfortunately going through, he's already gone through problems with his relationship with his girlfriend, basically. They've ended it peacefully, and which is a good thing, really, because I want him to be there for his daughter, really, because he loves her like there's no tomorrow, basically. I'm comfortable with telling you this because, it's about time that I talked a little bit more about my family, basically. And who better not than to start with my distant relatives, basically. And with them, it's not really all that distant, really. Like, apart from my uncle that I'm not really too fond of with how he treats my mother from time to time, especially when they were kids. And I'll tell a little story about him later on because it's a banger, really, of a story. Um, Sean, bless him, he went all the way to Nepal to help out with some of the sick children here and there. He was basically a missionary as well. He worked for the church for a small time after his one relationship with this one girl unfortunately didn't turn out the way he wanted. Basically, she was willing to wait, and he just said, "No, I don't want you waiting around for me. Go out and find what you need to make you feel happy," basically. So he kind of royally screwed up there, but at the end of the day, it was his choice, and he has met someone new, and thankfully he's now pregnant. He's not pregnant, she's pregnant with his child, basically. So I'm happy for him. He's finally going to be a dad. But yeah, I'm just glad it's something that he's took the time to think about, really, rather than just rushing into it at a young age, basically. It's nice to see, really, where we're in a generation where kids are raising kids, unfortunately, and it's kind of silly, really, if you think about it. But not Sean, bless him. He's much older and much wiser now, and he's thinking ahead of him, basically. So yeah, if you're wondering, the two stars here are representing the twins, Lizette and Dion. This one is representing Byron, because this is like the smallest one out of the other two, so he's basically the baby of the group. And Sean is the biggest one, so he was the first one, basically. So it goes Sean, Dion, Lizette, and Byron. So they're basically the representation of the Pacific Triple Star, basically. I don't know why they call it the Triple Star, since there's four. Technically, on the Aussie one, there's also two little ones, but we're not going to go into that one because it wouldn't fit this design now if I added two. I mean, I could have added my uncle onto one of those stars, but to be frank, I'm not really too fond of him after what he's done recently. See, they came over recently for a visit, and they went to my nan's house, bless her. She's still alive, she's about 102, bless her heart. And Dion basically took it upon himself, sorry, not Dion, Dennis, bless him, that was his name. That's his name, my uncle, Dennis. He's took it upon himself to rub off all of the corresponding heights of every single family member, apart from his own children and himself, from the doorway of my nan's old door, which really, really upset Byron, Dion, and Lizette. But Sean, bless him, being so understanding and all that, he's trying to keep the peace, basically, when I've said to him, you shouldn't have to keep the peace for him. He's a grown man, and you should know the stupidness of what he does, basically. You know, it's a little bit of family drama here and there, basically. I mean, I love my uncle, but Jesus, he can be an arsehole sometimes, honestly. And I think I'll tell you that little story of my two uncles. I have two uncles, and my mother has two brothers, basically, hence two uncles. The eldest one's called Terry, the youngest one's called Dennis. Dennis, in question, basically gets his ass beat in this story, which is a very funny one. I'll tell you it, don't worry. So my uncle Terry is an avid lover of motorcycles, as is myself. I love motorcycles. And he's basically said to Dennis, like, I've just washed my motorcycle, I've made sure, like, to not get under the gears and all that, so, like, don't go near it, don't, like, clean it, don't wet it or anything. And this tosspot basically takes a water canister and just pours it over the exhaust pipe of the bike. And he's like this. And Terry, he's the type of guy that takes no shit, but if you asked him to do something for you, he would do it immediately. He's like one of those types that he keeps to himself. I like myself, really, a bit of a hermit. He likes to keep to himself. Doesn't have any kids. Not that he doesn't want to. He unfortunately can't, which is a shame, really, because I think he'd be a very good dad. But if you piss him off, you're going 6 feet under, basically, which he nearly did to Dennis, basically. I think he actually took a wrench and tried smacking him in the face with it, but Dennis managed to get it out of his hands, and anyway, they're on the floor out in the garden, just beating on one another, or more Terry to Dennis than Dennis to Terry. My mum's watching this, and she's just shocked. She's just like, oh my god, my brothers are fighting. Like, obviously honestly, there's like the sibling rivalry stuff here and there, but she's never seen them outright go at it, basically. And my nan, she's had to pull out a frying pan out of the kitchen and run up to Terry, and she's like, stop killing Dennis! Stop killing my boy! She's hitting him. She's literally hitting him. Like, stop killing my boy! And I'm thinking to myself, your boy just tried to ruin your other boy's bleeding merchandise. You know, like, that bikes back then were not cheap. Like, I think he had a Norton Commando, so those things now are priceless, absolutely priceless, along with, like, the engine, the chassis, like, the make of it itself. It's just a rare fucking motorcycle, and a very expensive one. So, of course, I'd be pissed as well. It kind of ends with them, like, haphazardly shaking hands and all that stuff, but the idea, I wish I was there to see it, just the idea of Nan running out of the garden and taking a frying pan and just outright Looney Tunes style hitting one of my uncles on their head with it is just hysterical to me. That shit hurts. Like, if you've ever been hit by a frying pan, it hurts. Like, it's not as comedic as they make it out to be, basically. But yeah, that's just the craziness that my family does. Really, my uncle Terry is here living with the family, basically here in Brighton, and Dennis decided to move to Australia, I think, roughly about 17 odd years ago or so. So obviously they've picked up the accents. Sean is very good with the accent, basically. You know, the way it just goes in and out of the Aussie accent, it's quite simple really for him, especially for myself. Although it's not too hard to pull off the Aussie accent, although it depends really on the person, really. I'm kind of speaking a little bit more of a Perth accent rather than a Brisbane accent, because they tend to lengthen their words a little bit, and you know, they throw in an awful lot of ers and ows and all that stuff here and there, basically. It's actually quite a fun accent to pull off, really, because when you get into the rhythm of talking like this from day in and day out, it becomes the norm, basically, especially when you go from one accent to the other, basically. It's fantastic, you know, how they've been able to pick up the accent so easily, basically. I think Byron, although he's the only Aussie out of all of them, I think he has the the accent down the least, I think, which is funny. I mean, he's young, but you think growing up in a society you would pick up on their cultural things much quicker, basically. But that hasn't been the case with Byron. It's very odd because Sean's picked it up like a duck to water, basically. Lizette, not so much because I find with female Australians, I don't hear it as much with men as it is with men, basically, because men are more vocal, I'd say, like in Australia. So I think you'd hear it more. Although, like, I guess it depends. I guess maybe Lizette just hasn't got it down right, but it's just interesting to hear like two out of the other four of my cousins being able to speak perfect, like with the Aussie accent, basically. And I've had such a fascination with Australian history over the years, basically. When it came to the Emu War, which, yes, they lost that, so, up yours, Aussies, you lost to emus and all that. What can you say to that? You lost to an emu? Come on now. But then we can't talk. We lost to a bunch of rowdy farmers, as did America with Vietnam. So everyone is a loser in this retrospect when it comes to farmers and birds and stuff like that. I think the one thing that really interests me with Australia is their one song, Waltzing Matilda. I feel like that should be the national anthem for Australia. That is such a good anthem. Because with Waltzing Matilda, it explains perfectly the history of squatters, of settlers that arrived there during the time of when England would send criminals basically over to Australia and all that stuff, basically. So it was interesting history to find out how they made lives for themselves over there. For like stealing a loaf of bread, would they rather go to prison or go to a new continent? They decided to go to a new continent. And it's kind of ironic now how Australia has become what it is, basically a very woke-sided culture of people that don't even know their own Aboriginal history, basically. Because I was watching the rugby tests a couple of days back, and like, good on Australia, they were able to beat England. It's a big thing over in Australia, like this big rivalry between Australia and England, basically. I mean, I see it as a good bit of like banter and fun between the two countries, basically. But over there, it can get very serious because I've heard an awful lot of people that are quite racist towards English people and vice versa, basically. Like, you hear the word pom being thrown around an awful lot. You'll hear an awful lot of South Africans, Kiwis, and Aussies using that. It's basically like, what is it, like, the word is like prisoner of Her Majesty or something like that, which is kind of funny because the irony with that is that you calling us prisoners is that you were technically prisoners yourselves. Your ancestors were prisoners that, set the houses up in Australia. It's ironic that you're now on a high horse basically trying to say like, oh no, we're trying to clean up Australia and all that shit and woke blah blah blah, and I'm like, bro, come on now. If you want to stop racism, just stop talking about it. It's as simple as that. Don't continue it by adding more racial slurs to it, Anyway, it was the opening that kind of befuddled me really because it was a nice gesture that they did, but it was the way they went about it which was kind of silly, It's kind of like what South Africa did in 1995, but South Africa did it better. Let me try and explain. South Africa in 1995, basically, Nelson Mandela said to Francois Pienaar, to unite the people for rugby and for us to make our win of the championship more poignant, we need everyone to sing Nozizikileli Africa. Everyone needs to know the actual African lines to Nozizikileli Africa, because it's part of the national anthem. You're supposed to sing the national anthem. It's supposed to like let the other countries know that you are proud of where you're from and your country, basically. So what I loved with the Australian national anthem is they sang it in Aboriginal. I believe, I can't remember what the actual tongue is for Australian Aborigines, so forgive me for that. But they sang their national anthem in Aboriginal, and I think somewhere else there was another verse of it in English, but I think for that night they just did it in Aborigine. And I liked it. I really found it very cultural appropriate, basically. You know, it wasn't too in your face type deal. But the unfortunate thing is that I don't even think half of the team even knew this song in the Aboriginal form. Like, I know one or two of them did, but looking at them, I didn't think an awful lot of them were even Aboriginal in descent, basically. Like, most of the teams themselves were kind of like white Australian and not Aboriginal Australian. And some of them were like Kiwi and Samoan and Tongan. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I can understand you're trying to be cultural here, but it was more poignant in 1995 because Chester was the only black African in that team, and he was basically the spokesperson. He was the link to South Africans and Africans to basically join them together within the stadium of Cape Town. Sorry, of Johannesburg. Sorry, because without Chester, I don't think the Springboks would have had the following that they did when they won the World Championship against New Zealand back in 1995. Thriller game, nothing but penalties and kicks. Back when Jonah Lomu was like this beast of a destroyer. He was a beast of a rugby player, basically. But yeah, the way the Australians went about it is, you can even hear it in the singer's voice, the one who sang it. He was kind of like, you know, we've beaten those bastard English. We're going to beat them again tonight, and I want you all to sing this anthem to, like, you know, show your pride and all that. And I'm just thinking to myself, great, that would have been goddamn awesome if you knew how to sing the song, like the singer knew, and some of the like rugby players did, but the crowd was like, you know. Maybe ahead of time, maybe send this out to people that we're going to sing this in Aboriginal, and here's like a script for everyone to learn. Like, I found it quite nice that they did that in Aborigine, but it's the way they went about it where it was kind of bad. And also they lost that night, so it kind of made it sting a little bit more for Australia. And I think this upcoming one this weekend, Australia's walking wounded, so it's really England's to lose at this point, really. But again, we're not really focusing on the tests because Eddie's got something up his sleeves where it'll come to dismantling France for their up-and-coming World Cup. I'm here meant to be talking about my cousins, but I'm off on rugby again, basically. I'm sorry, I love my rugby, you know, I love rugby and all that stuff, and I hope you guys don't mind my prattling on about it. But yeah, talking about my cousins, basically, Dennis Besson, he's into rugby. I remember this one time where I actually wore the All Blacks top, like the jersey, and we went to a pub together to watch the 2015 World Cup final together. He was wearing his very gorgeous looking jersey. Like, give the Australians one thing, their jerseys are gorgeous, like the green one, the green and blue one, and the golden ones. They are so good. I wish our jerseys were as good as theirs. They are so pretty. But yeah, I think we had this one group in the pub, like all of them All Black supporters, and as the All Blacks were doing their haka on the telly, they started doing the haka. So I thought, I can do the haka too. So I joined in with them, and they were like, yeah, come on in, like we're getting into the kamate like haka. I think this was before they actually came up with the Waka. I think it's Waka. Forgive me if I'm mistranslating this. It's the All Blacks one where they basically do a new dance, Waka Pongo or something like that. I believe it's something called the Silver Fern or something like that. I'm so sorry. The translation to me is just mind-boggling. So I can only apologise for that. But yeah, with the kamate, everyone knows the kamate basically. So we were doing the kamate. And when we were done, like everyone was cheering, we were all like getting into the game basically. And I come back to my table and Dennis is just sat there like, I'll see how it is. And I'm like, what? And he's like, avid All Black support. And I'm like, yeah. Like, you're an Australian supporter, but you're English. Like, where am I supposed to get off telling you who you support, and who are you to get off telling me who I support? You know, I'm an avid English supporter through and through. Like, if it was us versus the All Blacks. But as a neutral, you've got to respect the All Blacks because of what they've achieved. I mean, hell, I've even got a fucking tattoo stating all of the years that they've won on the championship, basically. All the way from 87 to 2011 to 2015. Very close in 2019, but thanks to England, we were able to knock them out, and then we ended up losing, unfortunately, to South Africa. Eddie Jones, yet again, underestimating the speed and the power of the fronts and backs of the Springboks, basically. And too rightly, they deserved it in 2019. We just were not ready for the Springboks' defence, basically. But we were able to handle the All Blacks' rush defence because of training, mostly. Eddie Jones, I feel like this year he will more than likely get his dream. He will get that championship sorted and done, basically. Either it be with England or with another country. I'm hoping with England because I feel like that's what he's leading up to for his career to end, basically, in style, is to get that Webb Ellis Cup and bring it back home to England. I mean, it's been 20 years since 2003 since we last raised the Webb Ellis Cup, so I honestly, it would be just another dream, like, to witness that again. I was 10 when that happened last time, when Johnny Wilkinson dropped that goal across the sticks to make us champions. And I would love to see that again. Either it be Marcus Smith drop goaling it over, or Owen Farrell, or anyone in general getting a try. I would just love to see that. Like, as most people would like to see their country basically succeed in whatever they do, basically. But for us, I feel like it's just a long time coming, and the headaches we've had with every single country just slagging us down and putting us down and saying we're not good enough. We rival it, basically. We enjoy the challenge. We enjoy, like, the challenge of being tested, basically. So it's just nice that hopefully this time around we can finally prove to the world that we still have it. England are still top contenders for it, basically. You know, to come runner-up against a very strong Springboks side in 2019, to hopefully make it to the final this year. Well, next year, basically, sometime in June. But I'll also be looking out for the Women's World Cup as well. That's happening sometime in October this year. And our Red Roses, our ladies, they're so good. They're very unbeatable at the moment. They're improving as well. 4 straight Grand Slam Six Nations. They have been beautiful. And their coaching staff have been fantastic, and their manager's been awesome. And Scarrett has been wonderful. She's been fucking great for the team. Honestly, she will go down as a legend in the sport of rugby and everything that she's done for it, basically. And I just want to see more ladies and more supporters for, female rugby, because it's as physical as the men. Trust me, like, it's very brutal sometimes. Yes, they might make a few more mistakes than the men, but to be honest, that's part of the game, really. You know, it makes it more exciting when there's more yellows and more knock-ons and stuff like that, basically. So I'm all for it, really, and it's getting more of a following, so it's just nice to see, basically. So, with that, lads and ladies, I will cut it short here. Yes, I did rabbit on a little bit more about rugby, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, I'm not apologising for that. I fucking love rugby, yes! But, never to fear, good old Bartholomew is here for another tattoo story time. Hopefully not next week, but the week after, because I've got quite a lot to get through. I've got Bloodborne, I've got God of War, a couple of First Class Troubles, and Dead by Daylight. And I need to finish off the Spike's Family manga review for the 4th one. I'll see if I can continue that one afterwards, if I have the time, basically. But with that, with me, my 4 cousins, and the triple star of the Pacific, I thank you all ever so much for watching another one of my little tattoo story times, and I will see you all in the next thing I ever do around here. Take care, my friends.